Welcome to Story Tales. Please like this video and subscribe to Story Tales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. Camden Holt stood in the doorway of his kitchen, frozen. The cake sat in the center of the island counter, its white frosting pristine except for the words written in bold red icing. To the biggest disappointment. He blinked, wondering if he'd misread. The chatter of the birthday party guests in the living room faded to a dull hum as he stared at the message. His 38th birthday, and this was what his wife of 10 years had chosen to present to him. There he is. The birthday boy finally decided to join us. Lena's voice cut through his thoughts. She glided into the kitchen, champagne flute in hand, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Do you like your cake?" Camden looked up at her. Her dark hair fell in perfect waves around her shoulders. Her dress probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, and her smile held something he couldn't quite place. "Interesting message," he said, keeping his voice even. Lena laughed, the sound high and artificial. "It's just a joke, Camden. God, don't be so sensitive." She leaned in, lowering her voice. "Everyone knows you're anything but a disappointment, right?" The way she said it made his skin crawl. Behind her, Bryce Mallory appeared in the doorway, his gym-sculpted frame filling the space. His eyes met Camden's briefly before sliding away. "Lena, are we doing cake soon?" "Some of us have early mornings," Bryce said, his hand touching Lena's elbow with practiced familiarity. Camden cataloged the touch. The slight lean of his wife toward Bryce. The way Bryce's fingers lingered 2 seconds longer than necessary. The exchanged glance that passed between them. "Of course," Camden said, smiling. "We wouldn't want to keep anyone waiting." He moved toward the cake, picked it up, and carried it to the dining room where their friends were gathered. As he set it down, he caught Rochelle's eye across the table. Roa's best friend since college raised an eyebrow, her gaze darting between him and the cake's message. "Nice cake, Lena," Ro said dryly. Lena waved her hand dismissively. "Camden gets it. We have this little joke between us." Camden didn't correct her. There was no joke between them that he was aware of. But he said nothing, filed it away, and watched as Lena moved around the table, her hand brushing Bryce's shoulder as she passed. When everyone sang "Happy Birthday," Camden blew out the candles and made a wish. Not for happiness or success or any of the usual birthday wishes. He wished for clarity as the night wore on. Camden noticed how Lena and Bryce kept finding reasons to be in the same conversations, how they disappeared to the kitchen at the same time for refills, how Lena's laugh became more genuine whenever Bryce spoke. "You okay?" Ro asked, sidling up to him as the party began to wind down. "That cake was something." "I'm fine," Camden said, swirling the whiskey in his glass. "Just thinking." "Dangerous pastime," Ro replied, bumping his shoulder with hers. "Especially with that look on your face." "What look?" "The one you get when you're putting pieces together." Camden took a sip of his drink. "There are a lot of pieces lately." Across the room, Lena threw her head back in laughter at something Bryce said, her hand lingering on his arm. Camden didn't flinch. He simply noted it, added it to his mental file, and continued his conversation with her by the time the last guest left Bryce, who hugged Lena a moment too long at the door. Camden had made his decision. He wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. First, he needed to understand exactly what he was dealing with. The morning after his birthday, Camden sat at his home office, supposedly working on a tech consulting project. Instead, he was mentally cataloging the past year of his marriage, the missed dinner reservations, Lena's conference in Seattle that had no digital footprint, the late-night work calls that required her to step outside for privacy, his gradual exclusion from gatherings with friends they'd known for years. He pulled up their shared calendar and began scrolling backward. Patterns emerged. Lena's yoga classes always coincided with times Bryce's gym held private training sessions. Her girls' nights often ended with Instagram posts that didn't include her. Phone records showed calls to numbers he didn't recognize during times she claimed to be in meetings. Camden didn't slam his fist on the desk or throw anything across the room. That wasn't his style. Instead, he opened a new document and began methodically listing dates, times, and inconsistencies. Working from home today. Lena appeared in the doorway, dressed in one of her expensive business suits, car keys in hand. "Just finishing some reports," Camden replied, minimizing his document. "Big presentation for the Westridge account tomorrow. Don't wait up tonight. Monthly department dinner." She checked her lipstick in the small mirror on his wall. Camden nodded, remembering there was no monthly department dinner on her work calendar. "Have fun." After she left, he pulled out the old tablet she'd forgotten about, the one that still synced to her email, because she'd never bothered to disconnect it. He hadn't checked it in months, maybe years. Now, he turned it on and waited for the notifications to populate. Emails appeared. Then text message notifications through her linked accounts. And finally, photos automatically backed up from her phone. Camden scrolled through them methodically. Pictures of Lena at restaurants he'd never been to. Lena in a hotel room he didn't recognize. And finally, Lena with Bryce, his arm around her waist, both of them smiling in what looked like a cabin interior. He felt a hollowness expand in his chest, but not surprise. The evidence merely confirmed what his instincts had already pieced together. Camden didn't immediately call her out. Instead, he connected a portable hard drive and began copying everything. Emails, photos, text message records, financial statements showing unusual purchases. He created folders, organized them by date, and backed them up to secure cloud storage only he could access. The following week, he installed small cameras in their common areas, nothing in private spaces like bathrooms or bedrooms, but enough to capture comings and goings. He set up location tracking on their shared vehicles through their insurance app, claiming it was for a discount. He recorded their conversations casually, using his phone's voice memo feature during seemingly innocent discussions. "You seem distracted lately," Lena commented one evening as they ate takeout at the kitchen island, the same spot where the birthday cake had sat 2 weeks earlier. "Just work," Camden said, giving her a small smile. "Big merger coming up. Lots of systems to integrate." She nodded, clearly not interested. "Bryce is expanding his gym, adding a whole new wing for specialized training." "That's great," Camden said, noting how quickly she'd steered the conversation to Bryce. "Where's he getting the funding?" A flicker of something crossed Lena's face. "I think he got investors or something. I don't know the details." Camden nodded and let the subject drop. Later that night, he checked their joint account statements. There was a series of transfers to an LLC he didn't recognize, starting 6 months ago. Small enough not to raise immediate alarms, but totaling nearly $40,000 in bed that night. With Lena sleeping beside him, Camden stared at the ceiling and contemplated his next steps. He wasn't a man prone to emotional outbursts or violent confrontations. His strength had always been his mind, careful, calculating, and patient. Lena had made a critical error in judgment. She'd mistaken his quietness for weakness, his composure for obliviousness, his patience for passivity. To the biggest disappointment, she'd written on his cake. Camden allowed himself a small, cold smile in the darkness. She had no idea what was coming. She wrote, "What on your cake?" Rose's voice rose in disbelief. They sat in a corner booth at a coffee shop across town, far from anywhere Lena might appear. "To the biggest disappointment," Camden repeated, stirring his black coffee. "In red icing, like blood on snow." Rose shook her head, her social worker instincts clearly engaged. "That's not a joke, Cam. That's what we call in the business a revealing statement. Has she always been this way and I missed it? Or is this new?" "It's been building," Camden said. "But I've been piecing things together, and it's worse than I thought." He slid his phone across the table, open to a gallery of evidence he'd compiled. Rose scrolled through, her expression darkening with each swipe. "The affair with Bryce doesn't surprise me," she said finally. There was always something off about how she looked at him. "But the money?" "Camden, she's been stealing from you." "Transferring," Camden corrected, "to an LLC that, as it turns out, is the holding company for Bryce's gym expansion." "Jesus," Rose breathed. "What are you going to do? Confront her? Divorce her?" "Because I know some excellent lawyers who would." "Not yet," Camden said. "I need to understand the full scope first." Rose studied him. "You have that look again. The one from when we were in college and Thomas Reynolds keyed your car for dating his ex. You never confronted him, but 3 months later, he somehow lost his scholarship, his apartment, and his reputation. Camden sipped his coffee. I have no idea what you're talking about. Sure you don't. Ro leaned forward. Just don't go too dark, okay? Get what you need. Get out, get justice. But don't lose yourself in this. I won't. Camden's voice was calm. I'm just making sure that when I act, it's decisive. Ro reached across the table and squeezed his hand. I've got your back. Whatever you need. Thank you. Camden meant it. Having one person firmly in his corner made the whole situation more bearable. As they left the coffee shop, Camden noticed his neighbor Jace Calder sitting alone at a table near the window. Jace nodded at him, and Camden nodded back. They had the casual friendship of neighbors, occasional conversations about lawn care or local politics, but nothing deep. Camden was surprised when Jace stood and approached them in the parking lot. Camden, Jace called. Got a minute? Ro looked between them. I'll catch you later, Cam, she said, giving his arm a supportive squeeze before heading to her car. Everything okay? Camden asked as Jace reached him. Jace glanced around as if checking for eavesdroppers. I couldn't help overhearing some of your conversation inside. About your wife. Camden stiffened. I don't think that's any of your. She did the same thing to my brother. Jace cut in. The words hung in the air between them. What? Camden asked finally. 5 years ago, different city. Before she met you. Jace's voice was low. She went by a slightly different name then, but it's her. I recognized her the day you moved in, but I wasn't sure until I saw her with that gym guy around town. Camden felt a chill that had nothing to do with the autumn air. Your brother? She seduced him, manipulated him, took him for everything he had, nearly drove him to... Jace trailed off, then straightened his shoulders. Just wanted you to know, and to give you some advice. Don't try to talk reason into a snake. Just chop off the head. With that, Jace turned and walked to his own car, leaving Camden standing in the parking lot, processing this new information. That night, Camden sat in his home office. The house empty as Lena was at another work event. He pulled up social media accounts and began searching for Jace's family. It didn't take long to find his brother, similar features, different city. Camden dug deeper, finding old posts, photos, mentions, and then he found a post from 5 years ago, a picture of Jace's brother with a woman whose face was partly hidden but whose profile was unmistakably Lena's. The caption read, Moving in with the love of my life today. Camden continued digging, finding fewer and fewer posts after that date, until the account went dormant for nearly a year. When posts resumed, there were different recovery hashtags, new beginning quotes, therapy references. Camden leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. This wasn't just an affair. This was a pattern of behavior. Calculated. Predatory. His phone buzzed with a text from Ro. You okay? Been thinking about our conversation. Camden typed back, fine. Just discovered the rabbit hole goes deeper than I thought. Ro's response came quickly. Need anything? Camden looked at his growing collection of evidence, then at the business card Jace had pressed into his hand before leaving for his print shop. Not yet, he replied. But soon. Very soon. Camden stood in Jace's print shop after hours, spreading documents across the large work table. Financial records, email printouts, photos, and transcripts of recorded conversations covered the surface. This is... Jace trailed off, looking at the evidence. Thorough, Camden finished for him. I don't do anything halfway. Over the past 3 weeks, Camden had built his case methodically. He discovered not just the affair with Bryce, but a network of lies that permeated every aspect of his marriage. Secret credit cards opened in his name. Small but consistent theft from his savings accounts. Emails to Bryce mocking Camden's trust and planning their future together. A journal digital, hidden in a password-protected folder on her laptop where Lena detailed her manipulations, justifying them with twisted logic about deserving more, about Camden being too passive, too trusting, too boring. Did she do all this to your brother? Camden asked, indicating the spread of evidence. Jace shook his head. Not as sophisticated. She was younger then, less experienced. With Derek, it was more straightforward, faked a pregnancy. Got him to empty his accounts for medical bills, then disappeared. Camden nodded, processing. And he never pursued it legally. Too embarrassed. Too devastated. Jace's expression hardened. but I always kept an eye out for her. When you moved in next door with her, I couldn't believe it. Took me a while to be sure it was the same woman. She'd changed her hair, lost weight, dressed differently. Used her middle name instead of her first. Camden moved to the section of the table with the most damning evidence. Screenshots from Lena's private conversations with Bryce, planning to leave Camden after draining their accounts. 3 more weeks. Camden read aloud from one message. Then we're free, and the disappointment will never know what hit him. Jace's expression darkened. That's how they operate. They see decency as weakness. It is a weakness, Camden said quietly, until it becomes a weapon. They worked in silence, organizing the evidence into categories, creating duplicate sets, securing everything digitally. By the time they finished, dawn was breaking. What's your plan? Jace asked as they packed the materials. Camden checked his watch. First, I need one more piece of the puzzle. Someone on the inside of her workplace. Later that day, Camden sat in his car outside Lena's office building. He timed it perfectly lunch hour, when she always went to the salad place 3 blocks away with her work friends. He spotted Nicolette Pierce, Lena's co-worker, leaving alone, heading for the coffee shop on the corner. Camden had done his research on her, too. Young, ambitious, recently passed over for a promotion that office gossip suggested should have been hers. Camden entered the coffee shop minutes after her and positioned himself in line directly behind her. Camden, Nicolette said, recognizing him as he pretended to just notice her. Lena's husband, right? From the office Christmas party. Nicolette, he said warmly. Good memory. They exchanged pleasantries, and Camden suggested they share a table since the place was crowded. She agreed, seeming flattered by his attention. 20 minutes of careful conversation later, Camden had confirmed his suspicions. Nicolette's tight smile whenever Lena was mentioned. Her careful wording about office politics. The way she deflected questions about the promotion. You know, Camden said casually, Lena sometimes works so late. I worry about her taking on too much. Nicolette's expression flickered. Yes, she's very dedicated. Especially with those evening client meetings, Camden continued. She never shares details, confidentiality, and all that. Nicolette frowned slightly. Client meetings? I thought she told everyone she was taking night classes toward her MBA. Camden's face revealed nothing, but inwardly, he noted another lie exposed. That's right. My mistake. The MBA. How's that going for her? She doesn't talk about it much at home. Nicolette hesitated. I wouldn't know the details. We're not really close. Camden nodded sympathetically. Office politics can be challenging. Lena mentioned the tension after the Anderson account. She felt terrible that you were blamed. It was a complete fabrication. Camden had no idea what the Anderson account was, only that it was mentioned in passing in some of Lena's work emails. But the bait worked. Nicolette's eyes widened slightly. She said that I was blamed. Camden feigned confusion. I'm sorry, I thought. She said there was some misunderstanding and you were unfairly criticized for something she'd approved. Nicolette set down her coffee cup with deliberate care. That's interesting, because I distinctly remember Lena telling our director that I had made the decision against her explicit instructions. Really? Camden looked appropriately shocked. That doesn't sound like Lena at all, doesn't it? Nicolette's voice had a new edge to it. Did she also tell you how she's been systematically taking credit for my work? Or how she spread rumors about me and Jack in accounting to distract from her own relationship with? She stopped abruptly. Camden waited, watching the internal debate play out on her face. I'm sorry, Nicolette said finally. That was unprofessional of me. No, Camden said gently. I'm sorry. Sorry that I'm only now beginning to see the real Lena. And that others have been hurt by her too. A long moment passed between them. Why are you really here, Camden? Nicolette asked. Camden met her gaze directly. Because I need allies who understand what we're dealing with. By the time they parted, Camden had Nicolette's promise to document everything and to be ready when he called. Another piece in place. That night, when Lena came home late again, Camden was waiting in the kitchen, a glass of wine already poured for her. You're up, she said, surprise evident in her voice. Thought you might want to unwind after your class, Camden said, sliding the wine toward her. How's the MBA going? If Lena noticed anything unusual in his question, She didn't show it. Challenging. Lots of case studies. She took a long sip of wine. What about you? Productive day? Camden smiled, thinking of Nicolette, of Jace's print shop, of the evidence mounting like a tsunami on the horizon. Very, he said. I think I finally found the solution to a problem that's been bothering me for quite some time. Lena nodded absently, already checking her phone. That's nice, dear. Camden watched her, this woman who had written to the biggest disappointment on his birthday cake, who was sleeping with his friend, stealing his money, and planning to leave him destitute. Who had done it before and would likely do it again if given the chance. Yes, he said quietly. It is. The package arrived at Camden's office the next day, an unmarked envelope containing a USB drive and a handwritten note for Nicolette. You were right. It's worse than we thought. At lunch, Camden found a quiet corner in the park and plugged the drive into his laptop. What he found exceeded his expectations. Emails from Lena to senior management, subtly undermining Nicolette's work. Screenshots of text conversations where Lena coordinated with others to exclude Nicolette from important meetings. A recording of Lena in the break room, mocking Nicolette's clothes, her single status, her apparent desperation. But most damning was a folder labeled Camden. Inside were emails Lena had sent to co-workers, painting him as controlling, possessive, emotionally abusive, creating a narrative that not only made her the victim, but justified her eventual abandonment of him. He checks my phone, she'd written to a colleague. Questions every hour I'm not home. I'm walking on eggshells. Another email. Sometimes I think he might actually hurt me if he knew the truth that I want out. The fabrications were expertly crafted, building a false reality where Camden was the villain and Lena, the trapped victim needing escape. His phone buzzed with a text from Ro. Free for dinner? Need to talk. Camden responded affirmatively and spent the rest of the workday processing what he'd learned, adjusting his plans accordingly. That evening, Camden met Ro at a small restaurant downtown. The moment he saw her face, he knew something was wrong. What happened? He asked as they sat down. Ro glanced around before leaning forward. Lena reached out to me. Wanted to talk about Camden. Said she was worried about you. That you've been acting strange, paranoid. Said you accused her of stealing money. Camden raised an eyebrow. Interesting timing. It gets better, Ro continued. She suggested you might be having some kind of breakdown. Asked if I'd noticed any worrying behavior. Wanted to know if you'd said anything about her to me. And what did you tell her? That you seem perfectly fine to me, and that if there are money issues, maybe they should sit down with a financial planner. Ro's eyes narrowed. She's laying groundwork, Cam. Setting up a narrative. I know, Camden said, and told Ro about Nicolette's USB drive. When he finished, Ro sat back, visibly disturbed. This is calculated. She's not just cheating or stealing. She's constructing an entire alternate reality. That's her pattern, Camden said. Create a false narrative, isolate the target, extract what she wants, then discard them. She's done it before. He explained about Jace's brother, watching Ro's professional mask slip into genuine anger. In my field, we call people like her predators, Ro said, and they rarely stop until someone stops them. That's what I intend to do, Camden said. How can I help? Ro asked without hesitation. Camden outlined his plan, watching Ro's expression shift from concern to grim approval. It's ruthless, she said when he finished. So is she, Camden replied. The difference is, I'm not doing this for pleasure or profit. I'm doing it for justice. Later that night, Camden met Jace at his print shop again. They were reviewing the final preparations when Jace's phone rang. It's my brother, Jace said, answering it. Camden could hear only Jace's side of the conversation, but it was enough to understand that Jace had told his brother about Camden's situation. After a few minutes, Jace held out the phone. He wants to talk to you. Camden took the phone. Hello. Is it true? The voice on the other end was steady, but held an undercurrent of old pain. You're married to her? To Elena? Camden blinked at the unfamiliar name, then understood another alias. Yes, though she goes by Elena now. A harsh laugh came through the speaker. Of course she does. Listen, I don't know what Jace has told you, but whatever you think she's capable of, double it. Triple it. She doesn't just want your money. She wants to break you. To prove she can. I know, Camden said quietly. Do you? The voice grew more intense. When she was done with me, I had nothing. No money. No friends she'd convinced them I was unstable. No job she'd sent emails from my account that got me fired. He stopped. Just make sure when you move against her, you cut off every escape route first. She's like water, she'll find any crack to slip through. I understand, Camden said. And I'm sorry for what happened to you. Don't be sorry. Be smarter than I was. Be more ruthless than she is. A pause. And when it's done, I want to know. I need to know she didn't get away with it again. After the call ended, Camden and Jace worked in silence for a while, finalizing the materials for Camden's plan. Your brother, Camden said eventually. Is he okay now? Jace's hands stilled over the papers. He survived, built a new life, but he'll never be the same. He looked up at Camden. That's what she takes from people, not just money or time. She takes pieces of their soul. Camden nodded, feeling the weight of what was at stake. Not this time, he said firmly. This time, she loses. Camden spent the next week setting his plan in motion. Every detail was carefully arranged, every contingency considered. He moved most of their assets to accounts only he could access, documented every cent to prove it wasn't theft but protection. He gathered testimonials from Nicolette, from Jace's brother, from others who had seen glimpses of the real Lena, and he planned a dinner party. A dinner party? Lena repeated when he suggested it. What's the occasion? No occasion, Camden said. Just thought it would be nice to have some people over. It's been a while. Lena studied him, perhaps sensing something different in his demeanor. He'd been careful to maintain his normal routines, to give no indication that he knew anything was amiss. But sometimes he caught her watching him, a calculation in her eyes. Who are you thinking of inviting? She asked. Just a small group. Your parents are in town, right? And Ro, of course. Jace from next door. Did I mention he owns that print shop I've been using for work? Maybe Bryce, since you two have gotten friendly through the gym. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Lena's face at the mention of Bryce. I wouldn't say friendly, exactly. No. Camden kept his tone light. You mentioned his expansion plans. Thought you might have been advising him or something. Just casual conversation, Lena said, recovering quickly. But sure, invite whoever you want. When were you thinking? Friday? I'll handle everything. You've been so busy with work and your MBA classes. Lena's smile didn't reach her eyes. That's thoughtful. Friday works. As she left the room, Camden sent out the invitations to Lena's parents, to Ro, to Jace, to Nicolette, explaining this was part of the plan, and yes, to Bryce, who accepted with transparent surprise. Friday evening arrived. Camden had prepared a simple but elegant dinner, opened good wine, and set up the dining room perfectly. Behind a decorative panel in the living room was a large screen TV, currently hidden but ready for its purpose. The guests arrived one by one. Lena's parents, first her father gruff and distracted, her mother watchful and critical as always. Then Ro, who gave Camden a supportive hug and whispered, "Ready?" Camden nodded imperceptibly. Jace arrived next, followed closely by Nicolette, whose presence clearly startled Lena. Nicolette, Lena said, her smile strained. I didn't realize you and Camden were friends. We ran into each other recently, Nicolette said smoothly. He mentioned the dinner party. Hope it's not an imposition. Not at all, Camden interjected. The more, the merrier. Bryce was the last to arrive, his discomfort evident as he nodded stiffly to Camden and averted his eyes from Lena's parents. As Camden served drinks, he observed the dynamics with clinical detachment. Lena, struggling to maintain her usual charming facade. Bryce, uncharacteristically subdued. Nicolette, watching them both with barely concealed contempt. Jace, positioned near the door as they'd planned. Ro, ready to support Camden when needed. And Lena's parents, oblivious to the undercurrents, but sensing something was off. Dinner proceeded with forced pleasantness. Camden played the perfect host, directing conversation, refilling glasses, ensuring everyone was comfortable even as he prepared to destroy the careful fabrications they'd all been living with. When dessert was served, Camden stood at the head of the table. He raised his glass. I'd like to propose a toast, he said, his voice steady. to truths we can't hide forever. Lena's eyes snapped to his, suddenly alert. Camden moved to the wall panel and slid it open, revealing the large TV. He picked up a remote. I've been thinking a lot about truth lately, he continued. About how we present ourselves to the world versus who we really are. About the stories we tell ourselves to justify our actions. Camden, Lena's voice held a warning. What is this? This, Camden said, pressing a button on the remote, is reality. The screen came to life, displaying a slideshow. It began with a photo of his birthday cake, to the biggest disappointment. Then came emails between Lena and Bryce, planning meetings, disparaging Camden. Financial records showing the transfers to Bryce's business. Security camera footage from their home showing Lena bringing Bryce inside when Camden was traveling for work. The room went silent as the evidence mounted. Photos of Lena and Bryce together at a cabin. Voice recordings of Lena mocking Camden to friends. Her journal entries detailing her contempt for him. Her plans to leave once she'd secured enough money. And finally, the connections to her past photos with Jace's brother, documents proving she'd operated under different names, evidence of her pattern of predatory behavior. Throughout the presentation, Camden remained silent, letting the evidence speak for itself. When it ended, returning to the image of the birthday cake, he turned to face the stunned room that Lena's face had drained of color. Her parents sat frozen, her mother's hand pressed to her mouth. Bryce had half risen from his chair, as if to leave, but Jay stood firmly by the door, arms crossed. You had no right, Lena finally whispered, her voice shaking with fury. I had every right, Camden replied calmly. This is my life too, the one you've been systematically destroying. It's not what it looks like, Bryce began, but Nicolette cut him off. It's exactly what it looks like, she said sharply. And it's the same thing she's been doing at work, manipulating, lying, sabotaging others for her own gain. Lena's eyes darted around the table, seeking an ally and finding none. Her gaze settled on her parents. Mom, she began, but her mother shook her head, tears streaming down her face. Elena, her mother said, using her first name, what have you done? The use of her real name seemed to hit Lena like a physical slap. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping back. This is ridiculous, she snarled. You've all been manipulated by him. He's the controlling one, the obsessive one. Ask anyone in my office. We did, Camden interrupted quietly. Nicolette wasn't the only one who came forward. Lena's composure cracked entirely. You think this changes anything? You think anyone will believe you? You're nothing, Camden. A disappointment. A stepping stone. I was going to leave you anyway. In 2 weeks, Camden finished for her. After emptying our accounts. After destroying my reputation with stories of abuse that never happened. After setting up your new life with Bryce using my money. I know the plan, Lena. Every detail. Bryce's head snapped up. What are you talking about? What new life? Lena whirled on him. Shut up, Bryce. Just shut up. But Camden was already displaying new images on the screen. Lena's secret apartment lease. Emails about her plans. Evidence she'd been setting Bryce up as well. Using him as both lover and fall guy. You didn't think I'd actually stay with you, did you? Lena spat at Bryce, her mask completely gone now. You were convenient. Useful. Bryce stared at her, the betrayal fresh on his face. The room erupted into chaos, Lena's parents demanding explanations, Bryce shouting accusations, Nicolette adding her own evidence of Lena's workplace manipulations. Through it all, Camden remained calm, watching the destruction of Lena's carefully constructed web of lies. When Lena made a move toward the door, Jace blocked her path. Not so fast, he said. My brother would like a word with you first. The color drained from Lena's face as she recognized Jace for the first time, really recognized him, and a connection to her past. This isn't over, she hissed at Camden, her voice low enough that only he could hear. You have no idea what I'm capable of. Camden stepped closer, his voice equally low. No, Lena, you have no idea what I'm capable of, but you're about to find out. The week following the dinner party unfolded exactly as Camden had planned. That on Monday, Nicolette submitted a comprehensive report to their company's HR department, detailing Lena's professional misconduct and including statements from multiple colleagues. By Wednesday, Lena was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. By Friday, she was terminated. Bryce's gym saw an immediate impact as well. Camden had anonymously posted a detailed account on local community forums, including screenshots of Bryce's involvement in embezzling client funds for personal use. The post went viral within their community. Within days, Bryce's membership numbers dropped by 30%. Investors pulled out of his expansion plans. The bank began asking difficult questions about the source of his recent deposits. Lena's parents left town without seeing her again. Her mother's final text message clear: "Until you get help, we cannot be part of this." Camden filed for divorce. The paperwork was immaculate, documenting every aspect of Lena's infidelity, financial misconduct, and pattern of deception. He'd already secured their assets, transferring shared funds to protected accounts with comprehensive records proving it was done to prevent theft, not to commit it. But Camden's most calculated move came next. Using documentation of Lena's previous forgeries of his signature caught on the hidden cameras he'd installed, he reassigned debt in her name alone. Credit cards she'd secretly opened, loans she'd taken out, all now legally binding with evidence she'd been the one to commit the fraud. When Lena arrived at the apartment she'd secretly leased, planning to hide there until she could regroup, she found the locks changed. The landlord, Jace's cousin, as Camden had discovered, had voided the lease due to fraudulent application information. Camden observed all of this from a distance, never engaging directly, never revealing his hand beyond what had already been shown. He moved through his days with the same quiet efficiency he always had, but now with a cold satisfaction burning beneath the surface. "You're sure about this?" Rowe asked when they met for coffee 10 days after the dinner party. "There's no turning back now. Was there ever?" Camden replied, "From the moment she decided I was disposable, this became inevitable." Rose studied him over the rim of her cup. "How are you feeling?" Camden considered the question. The hollowness in his chest hadn't disappeared, but it had transformed into something different, not grief or rage, but a clarifying emptiness, like a space being prepared for something new. "Vindicated," he said finally. "She thought I was a disappointment. Weak. Controllable. She was wrong." That afternoon, Camden received a call from an unknown number. He answered to hear Jace's brother's voice. "I heard what happened," he said without preamble. "My brother's been keeping me updated." "It's not finished yet," Camden replied, "but it's proceeding. I wanted to thank you," the voice continued. 5 years, I've been looking over my shoulder, wondering if she'd come back into my life somehow, destroy what I've managed to rebuild. Now I can finally close that chapter." "You don't need to thank me," Camden said. "This was never just about her and me. It was about stopping her permanently." There was a pause on the line. "Is it true she's lost everything? Job, money, reputation?" "Yes," Camden confirmed. "And there's more to come." That evening, Camden returned home to find Lena waiting in the driveway, sitting in her car. He parked beside her and rolled down his window. "We need to talk," she said, her voice strained. Camden studied her. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by simple jeans and a sweater. Her makeup was minimal, her hair pulled back. She looked younger, smaller somehow, like she was trying to appear vulnerable. "I don't think we do," he replied. "Camden, please. What you're doing is destroying my life. I made mistakes, I admit that. But this level of retaliation is appropriate," Camden cut in, "given what you plan to do to me, given what you've done to others." Lena's facade cracked slightly, anger flashing in her eyes. "Is that what this is about? Some stranger's story from years ago?" "People exaggerate, Camden. You know me. That's the thing," Camden said, his voice even. "I didn't know you at all, but I do now." She leaned toward him, her expression shifting to one he recognized, the soft, pleading look she'd used countless times to get her way. "We can work this out. Start over. I'll get therapy. We can." "No." The word was final, brooking no argument. "There is no we anymore, Lena. There's only the consequences of your actions." Her expression hardened. "You think you've won? This is just a setback. I'll rebuild. I always do. And when I'm back on top, you'll regret this scorched earth approach." Camden smiled slightly. "You still don't understand, do you? This isn't a game I'm trying to win. This is me ensuring you never hurt anyone again." He rolled up his window and drove past her, pulling into the garage without looking back. Inside, he found a legal notice that had been slipped under his door, confirmation that their divorce proceedings had been expedited due to the overwhelming evidence. The first hearing was scheduled for the following week. Camden poured himself a glass of whiskey and sat in his office, reviewing his next steps. He'd anticipated Lena's attempts to salvage the situation, her appeals to his emotions, her threats. All part of her pattern, all accounted for in his plan. His phone buzzed with a text from Nicolette. "Thought you should know she tried to get into the office today." Security stopped her. She was looking for personnel files. Camden nodded to himself. Another predictable move. Lena would be looking for leverage, for anything she could use to rebuild her narrative of victimhood. But he'd been thorough. Every path forward was blocked. Every potential ally warned. Every escape route cut off. The largest satisfaction came 2 days later, when his lawyer called with news that their expedited divorce had been granted with all terms in Camden's favor. Lena's counterclaims had been dismissed due to the overwhelming evidence of her misconduct. "In 30 years of practice," his lawyer said, "I've never seen such a complete dismantling. She didn't stand a chance." Camden thanked him and hung up, feeling a sense of completion washing over him. But there was still one final piece to his plan, the surprise Lena couldn't possibly have anticipated. Camden was reviewing some files in his home office when the doorbell rang. He wasn't expecting anyone, but he wasn't surprised to find Ro on his doorstep, her expression grim. "We need to talk," she said, brushing past him into the house. Camden closed the door. "What's happened?" Ro pulled out her tablet and brought up a document. "My colleague in the records department found this. Thought I should see it immediately." Camden took the tablet and began reading. It was a lease agreement for an apartment across town signed by Lena 2 months ago, paid for 6 months in advance. "She was planning to leave even earlier than we thought," Camden said. "That's not all," Rose said, taking back the tablet and swiping to another document. "Check the move-in date." Camden looked at the highlighted field. "Next Tuesday, exactly 2 weeks after his birthday party." "The cake," he said quietly. The biggest disappointment was that she still had to wait 2 more weeks to leave. "There's more," Rowe continued, showing him bank statements. "She had already started transferring your joint savings to a private account. Small amounts, repeatedly, building up a cushion. And look at this." The next document was a credit report in Camden's name, showing recently opened accounts he'd never authorized. "She was setting you up," Rose said, "planning to max out these cards in your name after she left, stick you with the debt. Classic identity theft." Camden nodded, adding this information to his mental file. "Did your colleague find anything else?" Rowe hesitated. "Yes, and Camden, it's worse than we imagined." She showed him the final document, a series of emails between Lena and an anonymous account, discussing what appeared to be a journal. A journal detailing alleged abuse by Camden, complete with fabricated incidents, dates, and even photos that had been digitally altered to suggest bruises. "She was going to release this after she left," Rose said quietly. "Destroy your reputation completely. Make it impossible for you to challenge anything she'd done because everyone would believe you were an abuser." Camden felt a cold fury unlike anything he'd experienced before. Not hot rage, but something deeper, more clarifying. "Where did she store this?" he asked, his voice steady. "Cloud storage, linked to one of the email accounts Nicolette found. My colleague was able to access it because Lena had logged in from a company computer." Camden was already moving to his desk, pulling up his own files. "I need to send this to my lawyer immediately. And to the police." "The police?" Ro looked surprised. "Planning to file false domestic violence claims crosses a line, Ro. It's not just manipulation anymore, it's criminal fraud." As Camden organized the new evidence, a notification popped up on his computer, an alert from one of the monitoring systems he'd set up on their accounts. Someone was attempting to access his primary savings account using his credentials. "She's getting desperate," Camden said, showing Ro the screen. "Trying to salvage whatever she can." He quickly logged in, changed all his passwords, and added additional security measures. Then he sent everything to his lawyer with explicit instructions to include it in the restraining order he was now planning to seek. "There's one more thing," Roe said hesitantly. "Something I found that you need to see." She pulled out her phone and showed him a social media profile, a young woman with Lena's eyes, but different hair, different name. The location was listed as Seattle. "I think it's her daughter," Roe said quietly. "From before she met you. Age matches what Jace's brother told us about the fake pregnancy that wasn't entirely fake. She gave the baby up for adoption, but has been monitoring her from a distance." Camden stared at the image, feeling another piece of the puzzle click into place. "She told me she never wanted children, that she couldn't have them." "Another lie," Roe confirmed. "But this explains why she sometimes disappeared for a day or two with vague explanations. I think she was going to Seattle to watch the girl from a distance." Camden sat back, processing this information. Does the daughter know about her? No indication of any contact. The adoptive parents seem wonderful, stable, loving. The girl appears happy, well-adjusted. "Let's keep it that way," Camden said firmly. "This information stays with us. The girl deserves her chance at a normal life, far away from Lena's influence." Roe nodded in agreement. Later that evening, after Roe had left, Camden received a text from an unknown number. "You think you're so clever, but you've missed something important. Sweet dreams, disappointment." He recognized Lena's style, immediately the attempt to create uncertainty, to make him doubt his own thoroughness. He didn't respond, but he did activate the additional security system he'd installed after the dinner party. The next morning, Camden learned what Lena had meant. His lawyer called, his voice urgent. She filed a counterclaim. Claims to have a journal documenting abuse. Says she has witnesses. Camden smiled grimly. "Send her this," he said, forwarding the emails Roe had discovered showing Lena planning to create exactly such a journal, discussing how to make the false claims convincing. "This is..." His lawyer trailed off, reviewing the documents. "Premeditated fraud," Camden finished for him, "and grounds for potential criminal charges if she persists." 2 hours later, the counterclaim was withdrawn. That afternoon, Camden met Jace at his print shop to finalize the last piece of his plan. "Are you sure about this?" Jace asked, looking at the documents Camden had brought. "This goes beyond protecting yourself. This is justice," Camden said simply. "For your brother. For others she's hurt. For anyone she might target in the future." Jace nodded slowly. "My brother wants to be there. When you deliver this, tell him he's welcome," Camden replied. "It's his victory, too." The final confrontation occurred on neutral ground, a small conference room at Camden's lawyer's office. Present were Camden, his lawyer, Roe, for moral support, Jace and his brother Derek, Nicolette, and finally, Lena with her hastily hired attorney. Lena looked diminished, somehow her designer clothes replaced by a simple blouse and slacks. Her makeup minimal, dark circles under her eyes. But the calculation was still there in her gaze as it moved around the room, assessing potential allies, weaknesses, escape routes. She faltered visibly when she saw Derek, recognition dawning in her eyes. "What is he doing here?" she demanded. "Mr. Collins is here as a witness," Camden's lawyer explained calmly. "And as an interested party." Lena's attorney frowned. "I was told this was a simple signing of final divorce terms. I don't understand the need for this audience." "It will become clear shortly," Camden's lawyer assured him. "Now, let's begin with the divorce settlement." The terms were comprehensive and devastating for Lena. All joint assets awarded to Camden. All debts she had fraudulently created assigned to her alone. No alimony. No property division. Complete financial separation with all advantages to Camden. As her lawyer reviewed the documents, Lena's expression hardened. "This is absurd," she said. "I'm entitled to half of everything we built together." "You're entitled to nothing," Camden said, his first words since entering the room. "And you know why? These terms are punitive and unreasonable," her lawyer began, but Camden's lawyer smoothly interjected. "Perhaps you should review the evidence appendix before making that claim." He slid across a thick folder containing copies of everything: the financial fraud, the affair, the planned abandonment, the false abuse claims she'd been preparing, statement from multiple witnesses to her pattern of behavior. as her lawyer paged through the documents. His expression grew increasingly troubled. He whispered something to Lena, who shook her head vehemently. "There's more," Camden said, and nodded to his lawyer, who produced another document, a formal police report detailing Lena's pattern of identity theft, fraud, and planned defamation. "This hasn't been filed yet," Camden explained, "but it can be immediately if you choose to contest any aspect of the divorce settlement." Lena's face drained of color. "You're threatening me." "No," Camden replied calmly. "I'm offering you a choice. Sign the divorce agreement as is, or face criminal charges." Her lawyer leaned in, speaking urgently in her ear. She pushed him away. "You think this is the end?" she hissed at Camden. "You think you've won? I'll rebuild. I always do. And next time, I'll be more careful about who I target." Camden smiled slightly. "That's the thing, Lena. There won't be a next target." He slid across the final document, a comprehensive report about her history, her patterns, her aliases, with statements from victims, including Derek. The report had been sent to every major employer in a 300-mile radius, every financial institution, every relevant professional organization. "Your reputation isn't just damaged," Camden said quietly. "It's destroyed. Thoroughly. Permanently. You can leave here and try to start over somewhere new. But the moment you begin your pattern again, this information will follow you." Lena stared at the document, then at Camden, a mixture of fury and disbelief on her face. "You can't do this," she whispered. "I already have," Camden replied. "Consider it my gift to your future victims, the ones who will never exist now." Derek spoke for the first time, his voice steady. 5 years. I've been putting myself back together after what you did to me. 5 years wondering if you were doing the same thing to someone else. Now I know you were, but never again." Lena looked around the room, seeking sympathy, finding none. Finally, her shoulders slumped in defeat. "Fine," she said, reaching for the divorce papers. "You win." "This was never about winning," Camden said. "It was about justice." After Lena and her lawyer left, the room remained silent for a moment. Then Derek approached Camden, holding out his hand. "Thank you," he said simply. "Not just for yourself, but for anyone she might have hurt in the future." Camden shook his hand. "We stopped her together. All of us." Later that evening, Camden stood alone in a quiet park across town, watching the sunset. In his hand, he held an old letter one his mother had written to him years ago, before her death. The paper was worn from multiple readings, the words almost memorized. "Being strong doesn't mean never hurting," she had written. "It means knowing when to cut the rope that's pulling you under." Camden read the words one final time, then took out his lighter. The flame caught the corner of the paper, consuming his mother's handwriting, reducing her wisdom to ash. He didn't need the physical reminder anymore. He had lived it. As he walked away from the burning letter, Camden felt no triumph, no elation in his victory. Only a quiet certainty that he had done what needed to be done, not just for himself, but for others. For those Lena had hurt before. For those she would never get the chance to hurt again, that he had been called the biggest disappointment. But in the end, Lena had been her own biggest disappointment, undone by her own patterns, her own cruelty, her own underestimation of the quiet man she thought she could control and discard. Camden walked on as the last light faded from the sky, alone but unburdened, ready to begin again.